There is something deeply primal about our fear of abandonment. We build machines to carry us across vast oceans and desolate continents. We trust these vessels with our lives. But what happens when the machine arrives, but we don't? Throughout history, the sea and the rails have been haunted by stories of impossible journeys. Ships found drifting with cargo intact, but crews vanished. Trains that enter tunnels and never emerge on the other side. These are not just stories of wrecks or disasters. They are stories of the void, of phantom passengers and crews who stepped off the edge of reality, leaving behind only questions that refuse to be answered. Welcome back to Briefcase Story. Today, we're exploring the liminal spaces of travel, the moments between departure and arrival where things go wrong in the strangest ways possible. We have a fascination with ghost ships and ghost trains. Sometimes that term means a vessel that is literally haunted, seen by others even though it sank years ago. But more often, and perhaps more unsettlingly, it refers to the derelicts, the real-world mysteries where the physical structure remains, but the human element has simply evaporated. Today, we are looking at 4 cases, 2 from the sea, 2 from the rails, that defy explanation. We cannot talk about ghost ships without starting with the archetype, the mystery that defines the genre, the Mary Celeste. December 5th, 1872, about 400 miles east of the Azores, a British brigantine spots another ship acting strangely. It's yawing back and forth, sails slightly torn. When they boarded the Mary Celeste, they found nothing. And that nothing is what makes it terrifying. It wasn't a scene of chaos, it was a scene of interruption. The cargo of industrial alcohol was largely intact. There was a 6-month supply of food and water aboard. Crewmen's pipes and tobacco were still in their quarters, something no sailor would willingly leave behind. What was missing? The ship's only lifeboat, the captain's sextant and marine chronometer, and of course, the 10 people aboard. Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and 7 crewmen. Theories have ranged from mutiny to pirate attack to insurance fraud. Some even suggested a giant squid or a sea quake caused fumes from the alcohol cargo to leak, panicking the crew into the lifeboat temporarily, only for the tow rope to snap, leaving them adrift while the ship sailed on. But there was no sign of violence, no sign of fire, just a perfectly sailable ship sailing itself, while 10 souls vanished into the Atlantic. If the Mary Celeste is famous for losing its crew, the SS Baychimo is famous for losing its need for one. The Baychimo was a rugged 1,300-ton cargo steamer used by the Hudson Bays Company to trade pelts in the Canadian Arctic. In October 1931, winter came early. The ship became hopelessly trapped in pack ice off the coast of Alaska. The crew abandoned ship, setting up camp on the nearby ice to wait for the thaw, but a massive blizzard hit. When the weather cleared, the crew emerged from their shelters to find the Baychimo gone. The captain assumed it had finally been crushed by the ice and sunk. They packed up and headed for civilization. He was wrong. A week later, an Inuit hunter spotted the ship floating miles away. For the next 38 years, the SS Baychimo became a legend. It was seen dozens of times, drifting aimlessly through the frigid waters. It was boarded several times by explorers or native groups who found its cargo holds still full of valuable furs. But every time someone tried to salvage her, bad weather would roll in, forcing them off. It became the true phantom of the Arctic. The last confirmed sighting was in 1969, nearly 40 decades after it was abandoned. It's likely on the bottom of the Beaufort Sea now, but some like to believe it's still out there, sailing the ice floes alone. We move now from the sea to the tracks. Ghost trains often fall squarely into folklore, but some legends are so powerful they take on a life of their own. In April 1865, a shattered America watched the funeral train of assassinated President Lincoln travel 1,600 miles from Washington, D.C. to Springfield, Illinois. It was a rigorous, sorrowful journey spanning 13 days. Almost immediately after the real train completed its journey, stories began of a second train, phantom duplicate. For decades, railwaymen and people living along that specific route reported seeing it on the anniversary of the journey. They claimed that clocks and watches would stop as it approached. Witnesses described the phantom train as being draped in black crepe. They saw a military band on board playing silent instruments, and on the flatbed car, they saw the coffin, guarded by skeletons in Union Army uniforms. It never arrives anywhere. It just passes through, forever replaying a nation's grief. It's a fascinating example of how a collective historical trauma can manifest as a ghost story. And finally, we arrive at the strangest story of them all. This one steps away from verifiable history and deep into the realm of high strangeness and urban legend. It goes that on July 14, 1911, the Italian railway company Zanetti sent a luxury sightseeing train from Rome. There were 100 passengers and 6 crew aboard, enjoying the scenic route. The train approached the Lombard Tunnel, a kilometer-long passage through a mountain. People outside the tunnel watched it enter. It never came out the other side. Railway authorities combed the tunnel. There was no trace of a crash, no derailment. The train had simply ceased to exist inside the mountain. But the story gets weirder. 2 men were found wandering near the tunnel entrance in a state of shock. They claimed that as the train entered the tunnel, a thick, milky white fog enveloped them. They felt a terrible sense of dread and jumped from the moving train just before it vanished into the fog bank inside the mountain. Where did it go? The legend suggests it didn't move through space, but through time. Records from a monastery near Modena, hundreds of years prior, allegedly described the arrival of a large metal devil pipe spitting smoke, from which strange-looking people in bizarre clothing emerged before the monks chased them away. Did the Zanetti train slip through a wormhole in 1911 and end up in the Middle Ages? It's almost certainly a piece of modern folklore, but it taps into our deepest fear of travel, that one wrong turn could lead us off the map. Whether it's the verified historical mystery of the Mary Celeste or the bizarre urban legend of the Zanetti train, these stories stick with us. When we board a ship or a train, we are entering a contained environment designed to keep nature out. When that container fails, or worse, when the container survives but the people inside it do not, it violates our sense of safety. These phantom vessels serve as reminders that despite all our technology, the world is vast, sometimes terrifying, and full of empty spaces waiting to be filled with our darkest imaginings.